Hey folks, Post here, welcome back to another Pokemon Masters video. Recently, like a billion of you guys commented on my videos asking me to do some kind of, synchro priority list again. I did one before, but obviously we got some, more new synchrons and all that, right? So yeah, let's go over all of these again, just, in terms of priority, which ones you should grind sync orbs for first while you still can, right? Before the sync orb chance goes away, and or where to use your co-op sync orbs on, which we are getting like a gazillion co-op sync orbs, right now. Anyways, so yeah, let's go through this. So let's go one by one, in whatever this order is. So just starting off with Alexam. Alexam is ASAP. If you have Alexam, max out dupes, well, you don't have to max out, 3 out of 5, right? Grind Alexam as soon as possible. But the best support in the game. Yes, I'm saying it now. It's just like he does everything, right? You got defenses, you get speed, you get max crit, max special attack, right? You get accuracy, which is an extremely valuable buff, as well as heals, which again, heals for Balville is huge, and you get MP refresh on the heal. And a lot of people wonder why Pikachu is so good now, because Pikachu has an MP refresh on his heal, and Alakazam has an MP refresh on the heal, as well as having, again, defensive supports, speed buffs for the whole team, special attack buffs, accuracy buffs, and crit buffs, right? With move the MP regens, and also apparently does a lot of damage as well after he megas. So Alakazam, this is an easy one. Just as soon as possible. Masquerain, let's just skip for a second. We'll come back to Masquerain. Charizard, I put in a tier below. The reason is it's not because Charizard isn't powerful. Charizard's very powerful. It's just that Charizard's like so powerful that like you don't really need to complete the dude's grid. Like you could put it off. Like since he's already like super good without the grid, and honestly, like Charizard's grid is not bad, but it's not like 100% necessary. Like you don't have to do it, because without it, Charizard still performs phenomenally, right? Which is why you should probably prioritize some other folks. Like obviously you do have a really good Rejuvenate 6, but like outside of this, all of this extra damage is good, but it's not a make or break thing, right? It's not transformative. Right, and it's just not as important. Moving on to Dugong. Dugong, I'd probably put it down here at C. Dugong just doesn't get anything in its grid. I wouldn't say doesn't get anything, but just barely gets much, right? For the most part, you will still be just picking up some Icy Wind power-ups. There's some MP refreshes on this stuff, maybe. And then you got just a bunch of like hail stuff, which is not bad, but it's just so hard to set up, right? Especially if you're trying to like do Balvilla run with it, which by the way, like it's only for like the first 5 stages at the moment, right? Dugong's not like that big of a deal. But even if you are trying to use Dugong like in later stages, you have to like bring whole team, extra slot for the hail and all that stuff. And also I do want to say in terms of the priority list, I do give more weight to sync pairs that are much better in Balvilla, right? So yeah, keep that in mind. Not so much for co-op and all that, even though I will also weigh that as well, because it's also kind of important. So yeah, just Dugong doesn't just have much, unfortunately. So we'll put him down here. But I mean, it's just the damage boost is nice, right? Or if you're going Ice Beam, you could do that as well. Moving on, Mew is another one up here, right? Definitely go for as soon as possible. Mew is just fantastic. Again, free to play unit as well, right? Just all this, like you get first aid, which cures your once at least of all these, or not first aid. Let's think of natural remedy cures yourself once of all status changes. First aid is also really good. It's probably the reason why Mew is so good in Balvilla, right? Restores a bit of HP once during a battle when the Pokemon is in a pinch, it's like 40% or so, right? And the great thing about that is, as long as you don't go back down to that range after this triggers, for the next fight in the Villa, it can trigger again. So like, if you control your HP well, you could just like non-stop regen HP for Mew, right? Stage after stage, which is pretty amazing, right? Also, Mew just got like a billion other things going for it. Got your Thunder buffs, Blizzards, Swift buffs, Fire Blast, Psychic buffs, all that stuff, right? You got stuff like Shifty Striker, raise your evasiveness when you're using moves, Agile Entry, raise evasiveness when you just like come in the battle. You could like Sync Nuke with it. You got 2 Sync move buffs, which everyone has, and then stuff like Inertia, higher speed, the more you power up Sync moves. And then Blind Spot, the more evasiveness you have, the more it raises Sync moves, and then MP Refresh on World of Dreams, which is, again, fantastic, that people don't talk about enough. You got Hostile Environment to increase, like, the, paralysis on Thunder, freeze on Blizzard, burn on Fire Blast, all that stuff. Special Reserves 2, which is... no one picks that up. Weather Surge, Dirty Fighting, it's just a phenomenal sync grid all around, right? Obviously, you do want to go for a more defensive setup most of the time for Villa, which, again, I did, build guys on all these stuff back somewhere on my channel, which you can check, or just my Villa runs, which I do talk about them. Moving on. Next one, Haxorus. Haxorus, I will put it down here. Haxorus is really, really good, especially for Villa, right? Haxorus doesn't have its full grid unlocked, which once we do get Haxorus full grid, you get a lot of really, really interesting stuff, right? Like you get Outrage Confusion Boon, which powers up moves when their user is confused, and if you get like a Lesser Confusion 9, that's just like insanity. 50% on Outrage, and then you don't get like, you almost never get full confusion on yourself as well. And then Outrage move gauge regen, but at the moment it's still really, really good as well, because you have Carry On, which Carry On raises your attack each time you KO or just anyone on the field faints. It could be your own teammates as well. Don't take out your teammates. I don't think you could do that though. But yeah, every time someone faints on the field, you get +1 attack, and that is especially great in Battle Villa, where you are limited in MP, right? So you don't. So while you have that, you don't have to use your X attack buffs, right? You could just get attack buffs from just taking out folks, right, on the other side. And then right now, 2 double Dragon Claw move gauge regen, bunch of Dragon Claw nodes, which at the moment Dragon Claw is just a better build for Axis, unless like you actually just spent like Lucky Galaxy for like Lesson Confusion, like right now, even before we unlock that, like okay, you do you. But anyways, Haxorus is great. Moving on, next one, Metagross. Metagross, I'd put it all the way up here as well. Metagross is one of the rare sync pairs in the game that can actually clear like the later Villa bosses on its own completely. Like, stuff like Red, Metagross, Guzma, right? Some of the Houndoom, right? Some of the rare strikers that are so strong that they could just clear 9 units on its own. Metagross is one of those. Metagross is just incredibly powerful. Metagross's grid is amazing. Like Metagross before grid and after grid, and this is why I do put it over Charizard, because Charizard before grid is already fantastic. Before grid, Metagross that's good, but it's not like the best, right? But after the grid, this thing just becomes an absolute monster. You got stuff like Aggravation on Iron Head, which already has a decent amount of chance to flinch. You get Recuperation, restores HP, all that stuff. Haymaker, Sync Nuke, kind of, sort of, right? And then you get Bullet Punch Eagle Eye, which raises your crit every time you use Bullet Punch, and all that stuff. Just a lot of just fantastic stuff that you get behind Metagross's sync grid, right? Once you do unlock the full sync grid for Metagross. So, moving on, next one, Houndoom, also up here, because Houndoom, very, very similar to Metagross. Before and after sync grid, like, the difference is just, like, amazing. Like, before sync grid, Houndoom is honestly, barely even a striker. It's barely a striker. And then after sync grid, Houndoom becomes the second, in terms of just raw damage per, move, right? Houndoom is second highest in the game. And the gap between Houndoom number 2 and number 3 is incredibly wide. It's not even close, right? So Houndoom, with the full grid, you get like stuff like foul fighting, dirty fighting, and then Dark Pulse overpowered, which raises, you know, the more your opponent's special attack is decreased, the more it powers up your Dark Pulse, right? And it's just, this thing is, you know, phenomenal after grid, right? Before or after grid, you know, another one of those miracle stories that that happens with Synchrons, right? That's Houndoom. So you want to put it up there, and then moving on to the next one, Kingdra. I'd also put it in Actress's grade. Kingdra does a lot of damage. Does a lot of damage with Draco Meteor and all that stuff, especially, you know, after it's done boosted, and especially if you do have like rain, like this thing is amazing, and also doesn't die as easily. It still, you know, it takes a lot of damage, but it doesn't die as easily. And also, you, very importantly, you get the accuracy on Draco Meteor, so your Draco Meteor doesn't miss, which is one of the biggest problems with Draco Meteor, right? 9% accuracy or something. Something like that. 90 or 85, I can't remember. I think it's 90. So, Kingdra, I put on you know, over there, right? Moving on to the next one, Infernape. I would also put in this category, which is, yes, it's good. I would move it probably higher if you don't have Charizard or Torkoal gridded, but if you have like Torkoal or Charizard gridded, then yeah, just put it down here. Honestly, Infernape is really good. Like, hits super hard. Probably hits the hardest out of these three in this I don't know, Kingdra. I mean, it depends on how many turns we're talking about, right? But yeah, Infernape hits really hard. Unfortunately for Infernape, you don't have like the full sync grid out yet, which once we do get Infernape's full sync grid, like, this guy is absolutely just insanity. So you get critical strike on the grid. So yeah, that's Infernape. Moving on, there we go. Liepard actually changed my opinion on, after seeing it being used by some folks, right, in Battle Villa. Liepard is actually a phenomenal tank for Battle Villa, mostly because of its evasiveness, right? And, you know, if you got Liepard, and then you also got like Helios, you pair the two, like, it's just an absolutely just amazing, insane combo. Because you get Ridicure every time you dodge, you have a chance to, you know, regain HP. Obviously, you have dodge increasing moves and all that stuff. You got a lot of, you know, stuff like, let's see, on the run, which radically, you know, +6 evasiveness when you're a pinch, and a lot of really great stuff. You get a catalytic cure on your snatch. You got two, I think, yeah, you got two of those, 2 catalytic cure. You got 2 move gauge regens on snatch. You got 2 MP regens on snatch. You got propulsion on snatch, which reduces your, you know, sync move countdown for snatch as well. And yeah, this guy is actually really insane as a Villa tank, which I actually honestly didn't really think of before, right? So yeah, we're gonna put it over here, right? It's not the most insane thing in the world, but if you don't have any other better tanks, this is a good option to go with. Again, it's definitely not the best tank. It's not Mew or whatever, not Rotom, but it's an option, right? Moving on. Palossand. Palossand I'd also put in this tier. Palossand I'm slightly disappointed by. Like, it still does its thing, right? Sandstorm, raising crit is, you know, a chance of raising crit on Sandstorm is phenomenal. Raising attack is phenomenal, especially, you know, paired with Cynthia. Palossand just makes Cynthia so much better, right? But, like, that's kind of it for Palossand. Like, the limitations for Palossand is just units that can utilize Sandstorm, right? It doesn't have to be, you know, units that need Sandstorm specifically, like Cynthia, right? Cynthia obviously has Surging Sand, but, you know, even some units like Rayquaza or whatever that has, you know, Weather Boost, you could use Palossand as well, because, again, you do have a chance to give crit, all that stuff. You heal, good defenses for the most part. So, solid unit, okay-ish tank, and again, Sandstorm, right? Moving on, let's actually not talk about Lone Raiju. Oh, let's get back to Masquerain. Masquerain, I really didn't know where to put it, so I think I'm going to put it over here in this tier. If you do have Houndoom maxed out, I would probably move it up because Masquerain just helps Houndoom so much. Masquerain plus Houndoom is a just incredibly deadly combo. It has one of the highest damage outputs in the whole game. It's just insanity, right? Yeah, I'd put it up there. If not, I'd put it over here just because still a good tank. Okay-ish tank, I wouldn't say good tank. Still okay-ish tank. And if you're lacking on bug types, I could also see it going down here. Like if you really just got if you got maxed out Guzma, if you don't have Houndoom, you really don't have much use for Masquerain, then maybe down here. But otherwise, I'd probably put it here or here again, depending on the circumstances, right? Moving on to next one, Salazar. Salazar, I'll put it down here as well. Is Salazar's Synchro good? Yes, actually, Salazar's Synchro is actually pretty good. It's just that Salazar's base is just way too weak to really make it that big of a thing. And this maybe I could still withhold judgment. I'm still withholding judgment on this. Personally, I haven't finished grinding it, nor have I gotten the next 2 dupes. But I'll pick him up eventually. But just looking at the numbers, it's not the biggest, and it's hard to set up and all that stuff. If you want to use poison type, just use Koga, right? Just use Koga or whatever, for the moment being. Moving on to Meowstic. Meowstic, not impressed. Meowstic is basically a worse Vileplume with more speed that does a lot of damage on sync move when we're at 3 out of 5, which we're not at right now. We're at 2 out of 5. So, I don't know. Meowstic is kind of disappointing for me. Again, like I said, kind of like a worse Vileplume. Moving on, Heliolisk. Heliolisk is really, really good, right? So, Heliolisk, it really depends also on what units you have. If you already have Mew maxed out, then you definitely want to work on Heliolisk, right? As soon as possible. Or even better, Rotom, right? Rotom plus Heliolisk, Heliolisk plus Mew, Heliolisk plus Liepard. These are just absolutely just insane combos for Balvilla. It's Heliolisk is just so good, right? The 2 move gauge refreshes on Mudslap, I don't know who thought that was a good idea. That's just so overpowered. Yeah, this guy's incredibly overpowered. Moving on, and also heal. So this is just the Balvilla unit. I'm not going to talk too much about it. Anyways, moving on. Pikachu, we're going to put it up all the way up here. Reason why Pikachu's up here is, I think by now most people know, right? Move gauge refresh on potion and potion master healer, which gives you an extra 20% on per potion. And another thing that I do like about Pikachu a lot that I really don't see anyone else mentioning that much is, sure, the potion's good, but potion, a lot of people have potion. It's just an extra 20% on it. Not that big of a deal. Sabrina, generally I would use it at better healer. But sometimes why I would use Pikachu over Sabrina, sometimes, is due to the Thunder Shock spam, right? So Thunder Shock, you get paralysis, you get hostile environment on that, while also not sacrificing your potions, and then you could also pick up move gauge regen on Thunder Shock as well, which again, Thunder Shock just a 1 gauge move. You could go in and do that. Also, Pikachu, fundamentally a striker, does a lot of damage as well with the paralysis energy, all that stuff. Thunderball, Pikachu does lots of damage. So you could either make it a really, really good electric type striker, or just phenomenal healer as well. So both of those are fine. Moving on, Kailen, put it down. Kailen was a tough one. I'm probably gonna put it over here, B, because is Kailen good after the grid? Yes, Kailen is very, very good after the grid. It's definitely better than Mewtwo. Does more damage, tanks better. Has better AI, which unfortunately, can they please change Mewtwo's AI? Stop making it use confusion when it's on auto. That's so dumb. But yeah, that's an unfortunate part of Mewtwo, right? More DPS, right? Especially with move gauge, all that stuff. Although, I just don't think Kailen is sure, Kailen's better than Mewtwo, but I don't think Kailen's that much better than Mewtwo to justify well, if you're not me, right? If you do have, limited time in grinding orbs, well, me, I just grind them all, right? I have everyone grinded except for Salazar. Salazar's the last one. I'm working on it. But not a priority, like, because you already have Mewtwo. Mewtwo's already really, really good. Sure, Kailen's better, but it's not by much. Are you really gonna grind for Kailen just to get like a marginally better Psychic type Sharker instead of spending some time grinding a Helios Cup or something, right? So yeah, again, this is a weird one. It's a good unit. It's really good, but is it worth grinding? Probably not. Over a lot of the other units. Moving on. Rotom's definitely all the way up here. This is the easy one. Rotom is just insanity. It's like nothing we've ever seen before. Rotom is just like a Mew, but like better. In a lot of places, not everywhere, right? Mew obviously has its upsides, but Rotom, what it has over Mew is it has a 1 gauge spam, which again with Pikachu, people know just how valuable a 1 gauge spam is, right? And then with Rotom, you don't have to. It doesn't cost move gauge for Rotom to increase his own evasion or its own evasion, right? And also you do have something that Mew doesn't have, which again Mew does have first aid, which is more reliable, but Ridicure is just endless, right? Ridicure, you heal, you have a chance to heal when you dodge, and this guy could get max dodge really easily. So there's that. Again, Mew, Rotom depends on the stage, depends on team comp, obviously depends on the stage. But yeah, it's basically the same reason why, well, 80% of the same reason why Mew is also up here, right? Rotom, Mew, phenomenal tanks. Moving on, Gliscod, I'll throw it all the way up here. Like I said before, it's probably at the moment the second best striker in the game. At least me personally, right? If you think Steven's better, sure. If you Oh, I guess that's the only one, Steven. Maybe some people might argue Houndoom, but but personally for me, I do feel like it's the second best striker in the game. It does so much more. Like everyone knows how strong Olivia is, right? A Stone Edge does so much damage. This guy does not the same amount, does more damage on a 2-gauge pin missile than Olivia does on a 3-gauge Stone Edge. And again, it's only 2-gauge, and it has move gauge regen on the pin missile. It has 2 move gauge regens on the pin missile, and has insane physical defenses. Has vigilance, protects yourself from crits. You got no quarter, so again, that's what makes pin missile so overly just insanely powerful, right? And then like you got so much like stuff, catastrophe, first aid, which is what makes Mew like so good, right? Yeah, this guy's really good, and also another reason why up here, because before the Synchrid, like all these guys, well, maybe not Hound, before Synchrid, Houndoom is just bad. But like Steven, right? Before Synchrid, it's good, but it's not like insanity. Once you get the Synchrid, like Steven, this guy just ascends to like just absolute just insanehood, whatever that means, right? So yeah, definitely would put it up here as well. Moving on, Rosa. It's somewhere between this and this. I'd say I'm leaning more towards this tier, right? In terms of how quickly you should try to grind it. But like here's the thing with Rosa. Rosa, you don't need to grind the whole thing, because like Rosa's grid just comes down to this stuff down here, right? You want time to energize, MP refresh. You want both of these, and then you want X special attack, MP refresh. Everything else can whatever. Like, do not care. Yeah, don't care about anything else. Basically, maybe energy ball on a roll if you want. It's not. I personally don't think it's that big of a deal. But yeah, you want these 3 things, and you just don't need to invest too much into Rosa's Synchrid to make her just incredibly powerful. It's pretty obvious 2 times energized move gauge refreshes and move gauge refresh on X special attack all. So you could potentially get to +6 special attack for your teammates. And also, obviously, if you're lucky, endless just move gauge nonstop, right? She's the best at her job, giving move gauge. Unbeatable. Moving on to Vileplume. Vileplume, we're probably going to put it here as well. I just think it's better Meowstic for the most part. Also does decent damage, I guess, for what it is. For the most part, a good tank as well. So yeah, not too much to talk about Vileplume. Confusion, paralysis, all that stuff. Snarl, Satisfy Snarl. Yeah, that's Vileplume. Second last one, I guess. Second last one, Torkoal. We're gonna throw it up over here. Torkoal is so good, right? Torkoal, you could defend, you could attack. One of the better strikers in the game. Just does so much damage. You also got Will-O-Wisp, which again, if you guys watch my free-to-play Battleville run, Torkoal was just so key in so many of those matches. Like, not only does Torkoal do like, say like around 500 per Ember to the opponent, and again, Ember with a move gauge regen, and that is a 1 gauge move that you could spam to get your sync move for your team, right? And also do just tanks like insanely well, right? Especially physical attacks. Once you get like a Will-O-Wisp on your opponent, which cuts your physical attack, and then you also have just super high physical attack to begin with, and then you got the trainer move that boosts your physical defense as well. Torkoal is just like unstoppable. So Torkoal also, because another reason why it's all the way up here, and I could see an argument to put Torkoal up here as well. I could see an argument to put like all 3 of these up there, but I just personally think, again, they're not as urgent as any of these guys. Unless like you just don't have any good like Fire Striker, then maybe I'll put Torkoal up here, right? Because like I said, Torkoal is just so good. Anyways, oh yes, yeah. The Loading Rush is just here. Loading Rush is just, I don't know, just gives me nothing. Like I think the other day I saw like someone post on, I think Reddit or somewhere, about oh look how much damage my fully maxed out Alolan Raichu is doing on the sync nuke. I was like, oh, I was interested. I was and I opened it and checked it out and see, okay, how much damage does it do on a nurse sync move on a super effective stage, buffed up and all that stuff. It did 4,000 damage. It's not bad damage, but like for like a sync nuke, kind of pathetic, honestly. Kind of sad. That's like the best you could do, and it's like nothing. It's like it's just like a regular sync move from like any other decent striker. The Lone Raichu is sad. Obviously, if you're bored, you could just go like do a Thundershock, just like a weird like speed move gauge battery thing with Alolan Raichu, speedy entry, all that stuff. But like otherwise, yeah, don't know what the heck we're doing with Alolan Raichu. Just doesn't do that much damage. If you want to do damage, use Pikachu. Pikachu does more damage, even on a Thunderbolt or whatever. Pikachu does more damage. Alyssa does more damage. Rotom does. Actually, I don't know about Rotom. But just almost everyone just does more damage than Raichu. Raichu's just sad. And like, it's not like one of those, oh, you don't do that much damage, but hey, you could tank well or whatever. No, this guy can't tank well at all. Like, the only good thing about Raichu is speed, which again is actually good, right? Speed, move gauge, that is real. But also we don't have this yet. Let me unclick that. But in general, Raichu is just kind of sad. So anyways, there we go. Just you guys asked for some suggestions, so here are my suggestions. In terms of which ones you want to grind for first. Obviously, like I mentioned before, a lot of these depends on what you have, what the resources you have at stake. Like if you have like Metagross, but it's like 1 out of 5, then it's whatever, right? I put Metagross much lower. I would put Torkoal much higher, right? If you don't have 3 out of 5, all that stuff. But again, depends on circumstances, depends on what you're trying to do, depends on your team's weaknesses, what you need to get through certain stages, right? So anyways, that's it for this one. Hope you guys enjoy. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like if you enjoyed this video, share your channel for some more Rearise content. And good luck grinding before the grind stuff goes away for the sync orbs. But again, like I said, you can still use the co-op sync orbs on them, which they are giving out in abundance. So anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one.